in Geneva, so he often travels to Geneva. I think he spends a lot of time these years in Geneva for his meetings. And he also serves as the chairperson of a Future of Work policy group within the International Organization of Employers. And since he got his MBA from Yale University School of Management, he's also been involved with the Yale, the Global Advisors Group of Yale School of Management. So he's a quite busy man, and he's actually started as an economics student, I understand, at the Stevens College of Delhi University in Delhi, and also he studied economics at Delhi School of Economics. Then he got his MBA from Yale. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome and please welcome Rajeev Dubey.
Good morning, and thank you so much for being here. I'm deeply privileged and humbled to be standing here in front of you. In fact, so humbled as to be rendered almost speechless, but I have a speech to give, so I take courage from the German poet Wolfgang Goethe, who would have told me, "Do not be so humble, dear sir, after all you're not that great." So taking courage from that, most humbly and respectfully over the next 30-35 minutes, I want to share with you on this journey that the Mahindra Group embarked upon 10 years ago to create tomorrow's company and tomorrow's leaders, and we call that journey Rise. Sorry. This is the only slide I have about the Mahindra Group, but just to give you a sense, we are a reasonably large group, and we are spread across many businesses. We operate in more than 100 countries. We have 260,000 plus employees. And it's not mentioned here, and I don't want to boast, but just to give you a sense of where we are coming from, in the last 15 years, the market cap of the group has grown 40 times. So that's just to give you a sense that we are on a very high growth trajectory. Perhaps not surprising because we are in a high growth country. So this is the context. I guess I'm carrying coal to Newcastle, but just want to remind you that it was in this new normal, which is VUCA, you're familiar with that, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous, plus there is a pushback by stakeholders. People are not willing to accept easily what you dish out to them, either customers, your own employees, members of the supply chain, shareholders of course have always pushed back, and now communities are pushing back. So in this new normal, the question was, how do you create sustained business outperformance? And it became very clear to us that in addition to strategy, structure, processes and metrics, we would not be able to show sustained outperformance unless we were also showing at the same time extreme care for all our stakeholders, and we were nurturing and nourishing the core values of the group. So this, if you like, was the triumvirate that had to go together. Business performance, extreme care, and core values. For the purposes of this presentation, I will not be talking about strategy, structure, processes, and metrics, not because they are not important, of course they are. They're absolutely critical, they're necessary, but they're not sufficient for sustained outperformance. And the space that I'm going to come from is that really the source of outperformance and greatness, or the lack of it, are human beings. So a lot of what I'm going to say is from the point of view of human beings and from the point of view of leaders specifically. And in our definition, a person is a leader if he has at least one person looking up to him or her for guidance, and I guess that means almost everybody is a leader. So this is what I'm going to present to you is not something that is aimed at a few elite leaders in the Mahindra group. It's a mass movement. It is as much for our blue-collar workers with some sort of modification as it is for senior people. Having said that, it was clear to us that we needed to enunciate very, very clearly what our purpose was, what our dream, our vision, whatever you want to call it. And for us, it's this one statement. This one statement, I don't know whether you can see it at the back. Can you see it at the back? Okay, I'll talk about it. It basically says that our core purpose is to drive positive change in the lives of our stakeholders and communities to enable them to rise. Since we are a business house, we have to do this through our businesses, and we will create outperforming rise businesses by challenging conventional thinking and innovatively using our resources. This one sentence is the mother font for all our business strategy. Choice of what business we go into or not go into, what we exit from, what customer segments we approach, how we deliver business, and of course, it's the mother font for all our human capital and leadership strategies. So now my talk, at least up here, was creating tomorrow's leaders, the 3+5. And I'm really going to describe to you the 3+5 framework that we have derived from our core purpose. And the 3 is on the screen in front of you. We are really talking about continuous business transformation through a cultural transformation that sits on 3 views of the world. These are attitudes, mindsets. We call them the rise pillars. They are, number 1, accept no limits. Number 2, do alternative thinking. Number 3, above all, ensure you're driving positive change. Now, these 3 views of the world, if seamlessly and effortlessly brought into every situation that we are in, we believe will create outperforming rise businesses that will drive positive change. Now, these are of course lofty 30,000 views of the world, and the question is, how do you bring them into daily behavior? What does it mean for the guy on the shop floor? What does it mean for the person out in the marketplace? How do you convert these words into meaningful activities and behaviors? And that of course is the challenge. And we do that really by aligning what we call the HR levers to these 3 pillars. If we are successful in aligning all the HR levers, which is, these HR levers are available to every organization. The question is, how do you design and how do you operate those levers? That will make all the difference. So we have done a lot of work. In fact, there was a group of about 100 people which spent close to 2 years trying to align all the HR levers to the rise pillars. And these were all business people. It was not an HR thing. There were a few HR people to own the process, to act as catalysts, to facilitate, but it was essentially business people who worked on aligning the HR levers so that the rise pillars went into the Mahindra DNA, so that people didn't have to think too much. They just automatically kept on asking, are we easily accepting limits? Are we really doing alternative thinking? Are we above all driving positive change? And you kept asking these questions, and these 3 pillars took on different manifestations in different businesses. We never overprescribed. So we are an engineering company. There was huge pressure on us to define, to elaborate, to create templates, and we resisted that temptation because we felt that the power was in not over-defining it. Having said that, of course, we had to align the HR levers. And the HR levers are the stuff that you see on the screen, and I'm not going to get into detail. It's about things like the performance management system, the talent management system, the reward and recognition, the communication. These are the normal HR levers. The levers are not new. how you operate them, how you align them to the three pillars, that's the real effort. And if you ask me, it's an ongoing process. We spend 2 years, but we keep on finding the need to tweak, to adapt. It's a journey. RISE is a journey. The day we think we have arrived, we are dead. So we believe that it must go on. It's an energy and a spirit. Now, the point then is, we have the RISE pillars, we have aligned the HR levers, but what people experience is not pillars and levers. What they experience is behavior. So we have identified 5 leadership behaviors, and I will spend a little bit of time in explaining to you what are these 5 behaviors. So Creating Tomorrow's Leader uses the 3+5 framework. I've just explained the three pillars: accept no limits, alternative thinking, driving positive change. I now want to spend some time in elaborating the 5 behaviors that we have identified. The first one says, in the new normal, it is not good enough to use either the left brain, which is the brain of logic, intellect, rationality, programming, which of course is essential, nor is it good enough to use the right brain, which is the brain of empathy, connection, intuition, innovation, connecting the dots to see the big picture. It is only people who can combine in any situation the left and the right brains, using the whole mind, who will really do well, who will hold the key to the kingdom in the new normal. So this is the first behavior. We are urging people to learn how to use both the left and the right brain in any situation, so that you bring a whole mind approach to problem solving. In the new normal, the mantra has to be to do more with less. And if you have to do more with less, you need multipliers. Multipliers of what? Of energy, passion, engagement, of creating a sense of ownership. Who are multipliers? Now, the opposite of multipliers are what we call diminishers. These are the extreme command and control type. People who are obsessed with the need to show, I am the best. I have all the answers. You do what I tell you. Such people diminish engagement. They diminish the involvement of people. They diminish the sense of ownership. And they are, in our humble view, in the new normal, a disaster. So what then are multipliers? Multipliers are people who are as smart and as knowledgeable, but who are not obsessed with the need to show, I am the best. They listen. They respect the views of others. They do not pretend to know all the answers, but focus instead on asking the right questions and then working with their teams to co-create the answers. Far from wanting to show I am the best, they get joy out of seeing 1,000 flowers bloom. They have no shame in saying, I don't know, or somebody in my team is far better than me. But I ask the right questions, and together we create the best answers. Innovation is at the core of this entire RISE movement. Accept no limits, alternative thinking. You cannot have innovation unless you have experimentation and risk-taking. We believe that the biggest impediment to risk-taking and experimentation is fear, the fear of failure. Fear now is the most important element in all our lives. There's enough research to show that. It takes on different form, but fear is there in any case. If on top of that, the leader rules by fear, any deviation from the prescribed course of action, off with the head or chop off the arm or whatever they do. So we want experimentation because we believe innovation is the core for success, is the key to success. So we want leaders who know how to help people overcome their fear so that they can experiment and take risk. Now, When you take risk or when you experiment, by definition there will be failure at least 50% of the time. So it doesn't matter in this scheme that you fail. What matters is what you do after you fail. Are you using the learnings from failure to create the stepping stones to success? In modern management jargon, it is about rapid prototyping, early failure, quick feedback loops, and get on with the game and try again. Have you heard of somebody called J.K. Rowling, the person who wrote Harry Potter? I want your permission for a small quote of hers from her Harvard commencement address a few years ago on the issue of failure. Now, J.K. Rowling, till the success of Harry Potter, was a singularly unsuccessful person. She was, by normal definitions, a total failure in her personal life and in her professional life. And then, of course, Harry Potter came and she became famous. Here is what she had to say about failure. I quote, "It is impossible to live without failing at something unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you fail by default. The knowledge that you will emerge wiser and stronger from setbacks, that you will never truly know yourself or the strength of your relationships until both have been tested by adversity. Such knowledge is a true gift, and even though painfully acquired, it has been worth more to me than any qualification I ever earned." Unquote. I move now to the fourth behavior, mindfulness. Now you say, my God, this bearded gentleman is going totally out of hand. Mr. Dubey, please go and sit in a cave in the Himalayas and be as mindful as you want. This is a business group. You talk to us about business. Well, I just wish to assure you that you will not be able to go to any leadership program or go through any edition of the Harvard Business or Sloan Review or whatever you read without coming across this word mindfulness at least 39 times. Now, mindfulness can mean many things, but in our context, it means having the ability to be open to all possibilities that exist in any situation. You can do that only if you are not a prisoner of your own past. Most of us are so much the prisoners of our own past, either success or failure, that we see life through a very, very thick lens. We don't see what really exists. We don't hear, we don't see, we don't feel, we don't smell the actual reality. Everything that we see or hear is heavily influenced by our past, which means that we are not even aware of what possibilities exist. If we are not aware of what possibilities exist, how are we going to innovate and create a new reality? So the first step in innovation is to be aware of possibilities by not being a prisoner of your own past. And that is what mindfulness means for us. Are you actually there in the moment, fully in the here and now? Seeing, hearing, observing, and then taking a conscious call, which of these possibilities, if any, you want to create into a reality. I want your permission for another quote. "Look well to this day, for in its short course lie all the realities and verities of existence, the splendor of growth, the glory of achievement, the joy of giving, the sorrow of loss and separation. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow only a vision. But today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well therefore to this day, such is my salutation to the dawn." This is Kalidas, a 13th century Indian poet. A very simple description of the here and now and what mindfulness can be. I come now to the last, but by no means the least of the 5 behaviors. In fact, if you were to remember even one word from my presentation, and there's no need to remember even one word, you must be seeing hundreds of presentations, it's this one: trust. If the leader does all the 3 plus 4, but is not able to create a culture of trust where people trust him and where he or she in turn trusts other people, there will never be sustained outperformance. So this becomes a vital characteristic or requirement of tomorrow's leader. Am I capable of generating trust? How do you create trust? We have a simple, it's not a simplistic, but a simple view. You certainly need some competence. I'm going to assume that you haven't made it up to a position in the hierarchy unless you've shown some competence. But more than technical competence, it is authenticity that is vital for creating trust. Authenticity. Do I say what I think, and do I do what I say? Is my thinking, saying and doing aligned again and again and again? It is, if you like, about walking the talk or removing the mask, having the courage to be who I am, with my strengths and equally with my weaknesses. So if I then were to just put it all together, the 3 plus 5 framework that we use for creating tomorrow's leaders is on the screen. The first 3 are views of the world: accept no limits, do alternative thinking, and drive positive change. And these 3 attitudes come to life if people display these 5 behaviors. Number 1, using the whole mind, combining in left and right brain. Number 2, being a multiplier by not being the extreme command and control. Number 3, knowing how to manage fear and leverage failure. Number 4, mindfulness, not being a prisoner of your own past, being open to possibilities. And last but not least, trust through authenticity. Now, I'm often asked, okay, that's a lot of nice, very idealistic words, hooray, 3 cheers, Mr. Dubey, but we're not impressed. How do you actually do it? Now, how do we actually do it? It's a complex question. I'll leave it for the Q&A, but in a nutshell, we believe that there are 3 things that create leaders. The most important is the experience or the kind of assignments that are done, both long and short term. So that this is not new. This 70-20-10 is a fairly well accepted algorithm, if you like. So one is experience. The second one is exposure. What kind of coaching and mentoring do people get? And finally, of course, there is the formal management inputs, which actually are supposed to be the least important. Now, I wouldn't care too much about 20, 70, 10, you can have any ratio, but all 3 have to go together. I think that's the point. In the same way as all the HR levers have to operate so that the entire ecosystem or the HR ecosystem comes to life. Similarly, you need to be working on all 3 to create tomorrow's leaders. Then, of course, we have the Mahindra Leadership University. I can talk about that. And then for us, poetry and philosophy and history is as important as physics and chemistry and biology and mathematics. So we tend to try and integrate the so-called liberal arts view into our creation of and creating Renaissance leaders. That's a term that we use. Of course, there are various inputs. I won't go into all that. And I mentioned the word Mahindra Leadership University. Won't go too much into that, but just to say it's run by business leaders. It's not an HR thing. In fact, the one thing that I would say stands out for Mahindra is that for us, the HR initiatives are all powered by business people. And the so-called HR professionals are really working as a team to catalyze and to facilitate. This is really important, that the ownership has to lie with the business people, and we try very hard to do that. I would like to just mention to you that we have a view on community interaction, or CSR, I think it's called, corporate social responsibility. We think that there are three very powerful reasons why Mahindra should interact with communities in serving them. Number one, of course, philosophically and morally, it is the right thing to do, to give back in due measure to society from whom we take so much. And that would have been good enough reason to do it. But there are two other very powerful business reasons why we should do community interaction. Number one is that it can actually become a mother font for business innovation. Because when you interact with communities, especially at the bottom of the pyramid, you get access to the unmet needs of underserved customers in under-penetrated markets. And from that knowledge, you can create products, services, business models, entire companies. And we have several examples in the Mahindra Group where by this knowledge of the unmet needs of underserved customers in under-penetrated markets, we've actually created powerful business companies. And finally, we believe that community interaction through volunteering, because it's not only about giving money. When we interact with communities, volunteering is an important part. Volunteering can actually become a crucible experience for leadership development, because when you're dealing with communities, you have to learn how to influence without having formal authority. And we believe that that actually is going to be the leadership model for tomorrow's companies. How do leaders influence without having formal command and control authority? And community interaction becomes a crucible experience for creating this kind of ability to influence without having formal authority. So if I were to try and put it together in a theoretical framework, and there are many people in this room who are much better than me doing this, I would say that tomorrow's leaders are those who are led by a higher order purpose and who know how to align knowledge, that is knowing, with execution, that is doing, with the inner space, the purpose, the dream, which is the being. And they combine these three things in pursuit of the triple bottom line of profit, people, and planet, and do it in a way that creates passion, which unleashes the potential of people and of ecosystems. I want your permission for one last quote. Thank God, this bearded gentleman is going to stop quoting now. This is what we call the RISE Manifesto. It's a statement which some of us keep on our table and keep looking at it for guidance in taking business decisions in our everyday life. And I want your permission to read the RISE Manifesto. Today is another perfect day to defy the world's naysayers. Today we will think bigger than our size. Today we will refuse to accept limitations. Today we will not be held back by the past. Today we will focus on the future and never ever blink. Today we will break down another barrier, scoff at another convention, and use alternative thinking to solve another previously unsolvable problem. Today we will accomplish something astounding and in the process change someone's life for the better. Today Mahindra will set an example for the world with boldness, with confidence, with relentless optimism. Good morning. Today is another perfect day to rise. And I come now to the most important slide in my presentation. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm now open to questions in case you have. It was a provocative, provocative talk, so please. Yes, of course.
Just looking at your the org chart, well, not the org chart, but the diversity of your group. There's quite a lot of
Need for tomorrow's leaders. You can use different terminology. You know, you're talking about the ambidextrous leader, or you're talking about the leader who learns how to reinvent as the situation demands. People who have to collaborate, people who have to have the ability to completely rethink whole ecosystems and processes. These are the requirements of artificial intelligence and machine learning and IoT and robotics. A lot of this actually is highly, deeply relevant for high technology. And in fact, there is, as you know, a lot of research now that is being done which says that the issue that one would have to grapple with in high-tech companies is not so much the technology, but the culture that you create out there. Because in this man-machine interaction, a lot of these would be highly applicable. Right? Now, would this framework not have been required earlier? I don't know enough. My common sense approach would be that yes, it would have been, but in very stable, no change in technology, no globalization, maybe it would not have been so much of an imperative. But in the new normal, this, in my humble opinion, is an absolute imperative. If you don't do these things, you would have a problem. And so it's, what are the forces of disruption? Technology, the globalization, now of course there's deglobalization, demographics, the rise of the young or an aging population, the rise of the female component in the workforce, and finally climate change. It requires a huge amount of adaptiveness, of collaboration, of being able to reinvent and reconceive, and that's the framework here. That's not very convincing answer. Yes.
So thank you for a wonderful presentation. I would just like to add one more point as to why, like we have been hearing about VUCA and discussing it over so many years. This countervailing power, the pushback that you talk about, is something really, and I would attribute that more to maybe the information explosion. There's so much of awareness, be it Google or be it social media, and there's a serious consequence and the backlash can be done. Hence, this behavior is much more important in leaders today and in all the employees to be aware, because one bad decision, the bad news travels very fast.
Oh yes, no, thank you so much. Yes.
So that is, I think, a very change that is happening in the last 10
yes,
20 years.
Absolutely.
So I thought
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Having said that, a lot of questions and thanks for the great answers. So one question unrelated to today's presentation I would like to put. Since you have been on the board of the International Labour Organization at Geneva, and I was thinking about the labor situation, especially in Korea. Are there any learnings, some trends, global trends that are happening, which you can share, which may be of use to us?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll answer that in two parts. Let me try and answer the first one, that in the Korean context, what is it that from my ILO experience would be? I would say it's dialogue. Are we having enough of a dialogue where we try to understand the other person's point of view, where we don't look for a I must win, even if the other guy loses? If we work for a win-win, I'm putting it very crudely, this world has to be a win-win world. It cannot be that I will win and I'll make you lose. If you come in with that attitude, it's not going to work. So I would say dialogue and trying to create a win-win outcome. When you go in, you don't even know what the answer is, but together you evolve the answers, you ask the right question, and above all, be transparent, speak the truth, have compassion and a sense of service. If you come in with that, then different solutions will be. Now, I don't know enough about the Korean labor market to be able to say for sure how much of what I'm saying exists here. But what I see in the ILO is that it's a lack of communication. It's the fixed mindset. It's the we-they attitude that creates all the problems. But if you go into a situation saying, I am going to have a truthful conversation, a dialogue, where I want to understand what your problem is and what my problem is, and then can we find together a solution, it works. Problem is that we are not willing, we have taken stands, and we are not willing to budge, we are not willing to give. And it's give and take, it's doing away with the old win-lose and looking for a win-win. So I would say that. Now, what are the issues that the ILO is grappling with? And I would say, to put it in a nutshell, it's about the future of work. What will work, workplace, and workers need to be, or what will they be? So, for example, what is going to be the extent of man-machine interaction? Will that lead to huge unemployment? What are the kinds of skills and attitudes that are needed to work in the new era of man-machine interaction? How do you create those skills and competencies and attitudes? What happens with the gig economy? If it is true that more and more of workers will be what are known as gig workers, or non-permanent, what kind of social security for them? Who's going to do the dispute resolution? So that whole question of the ecosystem for gig workers is a huge issue. Then of course they have issues that they are concerned with decent work and social justice. That's what the ILO was created for, and that of course keeps on coming up. But it's about dialogue and tripartite, that we have, it's government, it's workers, and it's employers. All three of us have to be working together, and to that you now have to add non-governmental agencies also. So it's about dialogue, give and take, and finding win-win solutions. Thank you very much for.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you, everyone. I wish you had a very good time. Now I would like to invite Mr. Vasudev Tumbe, Chairman of ICCK, for concluding remark and handing over memento to Mr. Rajeev Dubey.
Thank you, Mr. Dubey, for a wonderful presentation, and I'm sure the audience enjoyed and there were learnings to take. Thank you, audience, for attending in large numbers, and I hope you had a good interaction. It was really a great learning for me. Thank you again. About ICCK events, I would take this opportunity for a minute. On Friday, there is a Commonwealth Chambers event, a networking event, and this year ICCK is the leading chamber to organize, and I hope those who have not registered, please do so. And 1st November Friday is the annual Diwali ball, so those who are not aware of it, please block your calendars. So thank you very much, and I would like to present a small memento to our speaker, Mr. Dubey.
Thank you, everyone. This is the end of the seminar. Can everyone come up to the stage? We'll take a group photo. Thank you.